What's good, everybody? Welcome into Early Edge Live. Can you believe it? We have arrived at week 14 in the National Football League. So many big games today. And if today is like last week, we will absolutely crush it. But on Sundays, it's our biggest day. It's our bread and butter. So I bring in the absolute rock stars of rock stars. Let's get it going because we got every game to get to here, the ones and the fours. And look, where do I start? Let's start with the OG because we just passed 2 years together. He is the maestro. He is everything NFL at SportsLine. Larry Hartstein, good morning, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon, Coach. Well, you took me down in the Winter Olympics last Super Bowl, and then I took you down in pickleball. Well, I've just gotten word that we meet up again in Phoenix for this Super Bowl, so we got to come up with a competition.
You see these eyes, big boy? You see these eyes? Laser focused. I'm in. Now, next. I don't know if he's going to be at the Super Bowl or not, but I know this, that he will be handicapping the Super Bowl about as good as anybody. He is the most handsome man in all of the Early Edge universe. See you, Najad. Good afternoon, sir.
The wheels are turning for a docuseries between Larry Hartstein and Jonathan Coachman and all the smack talk that is involved there. I cannot wait for that. I'm doing great. I can't believe it's week 14, but we still have a lot left in the season, so let's get it started.
Well, you had a great week last week, and the hardest thing to do in handicapping is following up a phenomenal week with another great. What were you last week, by the way? I can't remember. I didn't take any notes.
Yeah, 8 wins, 0 losses. I believe that goes by 8-0 in most circles.
Yeah, depending on where you come from. All I know is that 0 is a donut anywhere you live in the world. So Sia's ready. And now this morning, I was a little shocked because sometimes the nicknames that I give out, they take a little while to catch on. But no, not this one. All over the chat. Where is Proppy 2-time? Where is Proppy 2-time? He is the best handicapper of props in America. No offense, Sia. He is Prop Stars. Alex, good afternoon, sir.
Live and in the flesh. Good afternoon, Coach. Great to see you, cousin Sia. Great to see you, Larry. And I hate to start the show with a little bit of animosity, but speaking of smack talk, I think we've reached a point in the season where I'm going to put something over my shoulder indicating exactly how many shows Sia has left to get into the club because it's getting close, Sia. We're getting close to the end.
Wow. I mean, family issues are family issues, but now we almost reached a fever pitch. I'll try to be the moderator, keep you two apart. Good thing we do this remotely. All right, let's jump into it because on this show, if you're brand new to the brand, we break down every single 1 o'clock game, every single 4 o'clock game, which today there are 3, and there are some big-time stars playing later in the day. So, gentlemen, if you don't mind, can we get started? Would that be all right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. Now, game number 1, a huge game in the AFC East. The Jets on the road getting 10 against the Buffalo Bills. Now, weather could be an issue. They're expecting high winds, maybe a little precipitation. Total 43. Here's where we stand as a brand. RJ, Jets Bills under 44. Uncle Dave from our prop show on Friday, Devin Singletary under. Now, this number's come way down to like 53 or 54. His combo number at minus 117. And then all 3 of these amazing handicappers have a play on this game. Maestro, start us off.
Yeah, I'm going with James Cook, the rookie out of Georgia, to go over 11.5 receiving yards. 6 catches last week, 6 targets, 41 yards. He is so much more explosive out of the backfield than Singletary. And after what the Bills, had happened to them against the Jets last time where the offense collapsed and Josh Allen made some big mistakes, I look for them to dump it off to James Cook. The Jets give up 40 receiving yards to opposing running backs. That's the 10th most. So it's not a bad matchup, over 11.5.
It took the Cowboys a long time to give Tony Pollard that number 1. I feel like the Bills are now following suit with James Cook. So love that play. Now, see it as I come to you. Weather, change of philosophy, whatever it is, there's some names that were good early season, may not so much be today. Who are you fading?
Yeah, one of those names is Gabriel Davis, and I have him under 48.5 receiving yards. That's going to be at -114. He's only hit this in 2 out of the last 6 games in terms of exceeding 48.5 receiving yards, and he's facing a Jets defense that's pretty good against the run and against the pass, particularly good against outside receivers relative to the slot, unless your name is Stephon Diggs, and then you're just going to beat anybody. But this is Gabriel Davis, not Stephon Diggs, and like you said, weather could be an issue. His catch prop is 3.5, and it's heavily juiced to the under. It's been all week, so I think the market is anticipating he gets 3 catches. Can Gabriel Davis catch a long one? Yeah, but he hasn't really been doing that since the early part of the season. So I think if he gets those 3 catches, he still stays under the 48.5. I'm always afraid of a guy like Gabriel Davis getting deep, but he just hasn't done it. And so from a probability standpoint, I don't think he's going to do it this week either.
All right, very, very good. By the way, I forgot to remind everybody, if you have a prop, and please make sure it's in the game that we're talking about, it drop into the chat, leave the juice for us at Well My Cappers Need It, and we'll try to answer as many as we can as we go along as well. Now, prop it 2 times. Speaking of 2 times, can we cash this player 2 times in a row? Who am I talking about?
Yeah, I don't see why not, Coach. That's Garrett Wilson. Gave him out on Friday at over 59.5 receiving yards. He is coming off a spectacular 8-catch, 162-yard performance against the Vikings. He had 15 targets in that game. 14 of those targets were on Mike White's first reads. Garrett Wilson has been absolutely phenomenal recently. He's eclipsed this number in every single Mike White start. He's also gone over 92 yards in 4 of his last 5 games. The Jets finally realized what they have on their hands, and that is a true alpha number 1 wide receiver. This guy can do everything. He can run every route. He was a part-time player in this Jets offense throughout the first 7 or 8 weeks of the season. Fortunately, the Jets figured out how good this guy is, and now he's running a route on basically every QB dropback. The Bills also started out the season as one of the best pass defenses in the NFL. They have cratered recently. They've also given up a ton of production to opposing number 1 wide receivers. That is why I love Garrett Wilson over 59.5 receiving yards. You can find this between 61 and 63 yards right now, and I think both those numbers are playable.
All right, very, very good. And be very careful, though, as Proppy always teaches you, when there's weather, there's a lot of reasons why this may not hit, but he loves this play. But snow, wind, maybe a little bit in Buffalo, just be very, very careful. All right, now, Big Cheesy 707 says Proppy's best play of the week is Wilson. He watches all the shows. See, a quick question from the chat. It's a fantasy question. Would you take Knight over Homer?
No, I don't. I think with the running back core in New York pretty healthy with Michael Carter being back, I'd take the chance on Travis Homer. It is a chance, but it looks like obviously Ken Walker is going to be out. It looks like DJ Dallas probably doesn't play. So Travis Homer will catch some passes and he'll run the ball.
Okay. Larry, quick question for those people who are interested in the side, because other than the under that RJ picked, nobody's touching this double-digit number. And I think a lot of the reason is we've seen double-digit dogs cover lately. What do you think of the number in this game?
I was tempted to go with the Jets, but you have to remember, not only did Mike White throw the 4 picks against Buffalo, but Buffalo's defense was not healthy for the first matchup when Zach Wilson actually played well. Jordan Poyer is back. Matt Milano is active. There are just a lot of things that would worry me, so I'm staying off.
Yeah, it's just a number that, especially the fact that the Jets have played so well and Mike White has played so well the last couple of weeks too. I think it's a stay away too at that number. Alex, go.
We'll say that the Jets are undefeated this season, coming off of a loss. They have responded very, very well. So something to consider with this game, considering they lost last week to the Vikings.
Boom. And they should not have lost last week to the Vikings. It happens. They're the Jets. They are the Jets. All right, game number 2 at 1 o'clock today, guys. And not a lot of movement from the crew on this one, but I think it deserves certainly a conversation because Deshaun Watson was awful. We thought he would be. He hadn't played in a couple of years last week for the Browns. They're at Cincinnati, a team they've dominated since Joe Burrow arrived. Bengals are laying 5.5, but this has moved around a lot, down to 3.5 earlier. I just saw it at 4.5. So whatever your book has it as, the Bengals are in that realm. Total 46.5 as a brand. Maestro, you're the only one that's on Cincinnati. Tell me why.
Yeah, big group hit this morning and sent that line down from 5.5 all the way to 3.5. Now it's settling in at 4. I still love the Bengals. It wasn't based on any injury news. It was just based on their opinion. And I just think the Bengals, this is a perfect rematch spot. They got blown out. They got embarrassed. They have Jamar Chase back. They're defending the run well, which is what you have to do against the Browns. Nobody's playing better than Joe Burrow. And last week, Deshaun Watson was the worst quarterback in the NFL in terms of all the metrics. If he suddenly, is he suddenly going to, get not rusty in 5 days, getting ready for this game at Cincinnati? And I tweeted this out, the last 4 home games, Joe Burrow, 11 touchdowns, no turnovers.
So we've got an issue, Maestro, very early in the show. Big issue. Speaking of big cheesy 707. He wants a showdown with the man himself. What say you?
I say let's go.
AB, who's all the way also in the chat if you have any questions for AB. Maestro, you know what to say. Let's go.
It's gonna be a showdown.
All right, Big Cheesy, you know the rules. You got to pay before midnight. Drop your Venmo into the chat. We will have it. -5.5. That's the number.
He's gonna get a great number at this late hour. But that's what I posted on SportsLine. We get the win by 6, and I will look for that later on tonight.
Alex, go.
Very curious how the Bengals are going to divvy up the running back touches with Joe Mixon returning to Cincinnati's lineup. We saw Samaje Perine look excellent in Mixon's absence. Mixon has been one of the most inefficient starting running backs in the NFL this season. We saw Perine get it done on the ground, through the air, total 200 yards combined rushing and receiving over the previous 2 games. Just looked very fluid, very comfortable back there. He can do everything. So I'm curious how the Bengals are going to treat that and how much work they're going to give both backs today.
So let's hit the numbers real quick. 59.5 for Joe Mixon, 19.5 so for Perine. Do you like either one of those numbers? But if you're asking the question, maybe not.
Well, it's a fantastic matchup against a very, very soft Cleveland front. They have been just a terrible run defense all season. If I knew that Mixon had a stranglehold on the job, I would be all over this number. However, with how good Perine looked, it's hard not to consider that guy. He's certainly earned more work. It's just a question of how much. So I'm taking a wait-and-see approach, Coach.
Okay. And see, Maestro made a very, very good point. We were talking about it on the early show, why the number dropped almost 2 points. And it's either a big group dropping a lot of money on it, or it's an injury. It doesn't look like there's an injury. So if that's the case, Jamar Chase, 26.5 longest reception. Do you like any of these receivers for the Bengals today?
Yeah, I actually like Chase and I like T. Higgins quite a bit. I think both of them can have great games in terms of hitting their yardage totals. As far as the 26.5, I think that's fine. I don't love it, one way or the other, but yeah, I would lean towards the over there. I think, especially in DFS circles, Joe Burrow is a very popular stack behind guys like Jared Goff, who's very price conscious, and Geno Smith is kind of in that popularity contest. But Joe Burrow is probably going to be maybe the second highest owned quarterback on the slate because he has his full complement of weapons back. I think it's probably a pretty big game for the passing game for Cincinnati.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, the touchdown prop for Burrow went from 1.5 to 2.5 because he's been so good that's a lot of passing touchdowns to bet on when you got Mixon back in the lineup. By the way, say hello to Noah Stanley, the boss of bosses, is in the chat today answering questions. He also said to Coach put AB in the no show your face zone. He'll be back. His face will be on the nighttime show. But yeah, sometimes we can only give the people so much, AB. We can only give them so much, Noah. But it's a very good question. All right, game number 3, ladies and gentlemen. And this is a big one down in the state of Texas. Now, the spread is ridiculous. You almost can't even touch it. It's 17. In the NFL, that's about as high as you'll ever see. Total sitting at 44. Here's where we stand as a brand. Uncle Dave is on Dak Prescott under 240.5 passing yards. He told you on Friday that he believes this game script will be Cowboys get in, Cowboys get out. Not a lot of work from Prescott. Then AB, Cowboys second half team total over 13.5. Tony Pollard, longest rush, over 16.5. And then Maestro, speaking of Tony Pollard, what do you like in this game?
I like him over 67.5 rushing yards. He's averaging 5.8 a carry. He's going up against a team that gives up the most rushing yards in the NFL. I do worry that it could get out of hand, and then maybe they go to the third and the fourth string guys. But still, this number is pretty low for a guy getting 6 yards a pop.
That's exactly right. And if that happens, Sia, and the Cowboys jump out to a 14 or 21-point lead, what are they going to do? They're going to play high safeties in the back, and they're going to let a whole bunch happen in front of them, which could lead to what?
Well, it could lead to Dameon Pierce getting game scripted out of this game like he did in week 12 against the Dolphins, where he had 5 rushing attempts. So I have Dameon Pierce longest rush under 15.5 yards at -115. I think you could also consider Dameon Pierce's under in rushing yards of 64.5, or at least that's what it was during the prop show. But I like the under in his longest rush. He seems to be running down as of late. He's been extremely inefficient for the most part over the last 3-4 weeks. In that span, the last 3 weeks, he has not exceeded 11 rushing yards in any of those 3 games. This week, again, I think he probably gets game scripted out at some point in this game, and I don't see him exceeding the 15.5 longest rush total. I will point out, somebody in the chat about 2 minutes ago mentioned that they saw an anytime second half touchdown prop for Malik Davis.
Wow.
And it was plus 1,400, which is an incredibly great number in this type of game script. If we get to a 21 or 24 point sort of margin in the third or fourth quarter, it's going to be the Malik Davis show, and it wouldn't shock me at all if he gets in the end zone. So if you have that prop available, I absolutely love it. It looks like it was Glenn who put that in the chat.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I thought he might ask those of us who've actually predicted correctly touchdowns this year getting in at certain times of games. Sorry, Sia. That was just low hanging. Sorry about that. Now, I got to come to you, Alex. Got to come to you because a very interesting question in the chat. What's better, the Zeke prop or the Tony Pollard prop? And I thought, why would he ask that question? And then I looked. They're essentially the same. 67.5 for Zeke, 68.5 for Tony Pollard. Your thoughts?
Yeah, identical numbers, obviously. It's a bit of a toss-up. We've seen Zeke sort of assume more of a short yardage goal line role. He also comes into the second half when the Cowboys are bleeding clock. I actually have a slight lean towards Zeke here. I'm just a little bit more confident that he's going to get a few more touches with the Cowboys playing with a lead. So I'd personally lean Zeke.
Okay. Texans are a defense that does not like to hit, and they do not like to stop the run. So be very careful. But we're on Tony Pollard as a crew. All right, moving on, ladies and gentlemen. This one, I want takes from all 3 of you because I don't even remember the last time the Lions were in the playoff race. I don't remember the last time the Lions were a favorite over a division leader. But that's what we have today, ladies and gentlemen. The Lions laying 2. Total 51.5. RJ has the Vikings in a teaser up to 8.5 when it was 2.5. Ravens plus 8.5. Mikey has the exact same teaser. And then, Proppy, let me come to you because the Lions, a lot of the reason that they've been good the last 6 weeks because they had a running back come back into the lineup. Who am I talking about?
Talking about DeAndre Swift, coach. And let me just tell the people outside of Detroit or who don't follow the Lions closely, this guy is one of the most talented players in the NFL. Absolutely dynamic, versatile running back, can do everything, can run between the tackles. He's an absolutely tremendous pass catcher. That's why I love him over 24.5 receiving yards today. He's compiled 14 targets over the previous 2 weeks. He really dealt with a variety of injuries early in the season. It was really only week 1 that he was fully healthy. He had 15 touches last week, which is the most touches he's had since week 1. Turned that into 111 total yards from scrimmage. This is also a great matchup against the Vikings. They allow nearly 50 receiving yards to opposing running backs per game. That is the 4th most in the NFL. We saw DeAndre Swift get rewarded with a 51% snap share. That is the most snaps he's actually played this entire season. I still think there's additional room for him to grow. That is because their 3rd string running back, Justin Jackson, played 21% of the snaps. So I think that with a healthy DeAndre Swift, this Lions offense is so much more dynamic, and he could potentially play in that 60 to 65% snap range, which would just give him additional upside. I love all of his props. I really love his combination line, which is floating between 63 and 65. I like his rushing line, but my favorite is definitely his receiving, just because of how fluid of a route runner he is. They use him in third down situations, hurry up, final 2 minutes, etc. So I love DeAndre Swift over 24.5 receiving yards. I would give his other props a look as well.
All right, real quick. One book has it at minus 135, but only 22.5. Would you lay that juice and get 2 more yards of value?
I'd prefer just to take at a number like minus 115, minus 110. So I'm more comfortable taking 24.5 if you have access to it.
Boom. Now, see ya. If that's going to happen, I never thought I would say this, but a couple of years into the trade, and now the Lions are the team that looks really good with that trade. Jared Goff has started to play really good football. And against a Vikings defense that can't stop anybody, I think today he could have a big day in what prop? Talk to me.
Yeah, it's funny, by the way, how decisive we are, especially when it comes to quarterbacks and our opinions. And then, 3 or 4 or 5 weeks later, we're like, oh, yeah, my bad. It's completely different. And then 3 or 4 weeks after that, we're like, yeah, no, I was right in the first place. So, with this whole thing is can be fickle from an opinion standpoint. But my opinion on this one is give me Jared Goff over 23.5 completions at minus 115. Earlier in the week, it was 22.5. I got it on the prop show at 23.5. This Vikings secondary really should get shredded. I'm kind of hoping they have some output offensively to kind of force Jared Goff's hands to dump it down to guys like DeAndre Swift underneath to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is an absolute target monster and usually very efficient with it. He's got his full complement of weapons at the end of the day in terms of Jared Goff. And I think the way the Vikings play defense, their zone defense, I think Jared Goff is just going to kind of chip away, have a lot of long drives that actually include a lot of pass attempts and a lot of completion. So I've got Goff over 23.5 completions.
All right, very good. A couple of props that we'll get to in a second from the chat. But first, Maestro, I got to come to you because the Lions are laying 2. Personally, I played the money line at minus 140 to take those 2 points out. A lot of people would lean into the over, but the Lions haven't been that over machine like they were earlier in the season. What do you make of either number?
I like the money line as well. I posted that at minus 125 on SportsLine. Some really bad injury news for the Vikings this morning, where left tackle Darrisaw is out, the center Bradbury is out, and Harrison Smith is also out. So that's all bodes well for the Lions. And Prop, you talked about DeAndre Swift. When he and Amon-Ra St. Brown are in the lineup, the Lions are 8-0-1 against the number.
All right, very good. Now let's come back to Proppy, speaking of him, because I saw somebody in the chat ask about Justin Jefferson 79.5. I wish his number was 79.5. It is not. It is 95.5 juice to minus 127. Proppy, talk to me.
I love Justin Jefferson, especially considering he had a huge dud, probably the worst game of his career in week 2 against these same Lions. Had 2 receptions for 14 yards. I think this is an awesome spot to back Justin Jefferson. I think he's a great bet to lead all wide receivers in receiving yards this week. That's not an outrageous take considering we're looking at a 95.5 line here. But yeah, give me Justin Jefferson. This is a great spot for him to have a monster game. I'm also sprinkling on alt numbers for him as well, over 120, 130, 140, 150. This has all the makings of a potential spike game for Justin.
And here at the brand, we call that stacking if you want to play multiple numbers on the same player. Maestro, go.
Just wanted to make a note about that first meeting when the Lions blew the big lead. They scored 24 points, they missed 2 field goals, and they failed on 2 4th and 1s. So they really didn't get stopped most of the day. I believe they punted twice. So I'm expecting a lot of offense from them today.
All right, let me come to you, Sia, because Dalvin Cook, if either offense is going to play good, you got to have your stud wide receivers. We already talked about DeAndre Swift. On the other side, Cook's number is 73.5 just on the ground. Your thoughts?
I don't love it. I actually think it's a pretty good number. I think Dalvin Cook is the type of guy I'd rather play in DFS because I think he'll be slightly contrarian over guys like Justin Jefferson in that game, Amon-Ra St. Brown, those types. But in terms of the 73.5 number, the Detroit rush defense has been pretty good as of late, certainly relative to the beginning of the year. So personally, especially with the offensive line issues that Maestro pointed out, if anything, I'd kind of lean the under there. And if he gets there from a DFS standpoint, maybe it's also through the passing game. But I don't think he's going to have an explosive rushing game performance.
All right, and last one quickly. Kirk Cousins attempts Proppy over 35.5.
Yeah, I'd lean over here. This game has shootout potential. Neither team tends to bleed a lot of clock either. They both play fast, up tempo. Definitely like the over.
And by the way, somebody asked about Jared Goff over 1.5 touchdown. I already played it personally, so I love the play. We hit it last week, and they're going to hit it again. He'll throw at least 2 or 3 today against that Vikings defensive backfield. All right, we got to keep it moving. We got a lot of games to get to. Gentlemen, great job so far. Now, Jags and Titans. The Jags have been a team. They're not going to be a playoff team, but they've showed improvements. Trevor Lawrence keeps showing up on that injury report this week, but the Titans are laying 3.5, and they've been awful the last couple of weeks. Now, AB is on the Titans minus 3.5, but of course he lives in Nashville. Let's take that with a grain of salt. Total 41.5. Then see, I'm coming to you because the Titans have a big running back who has had some really good games this year, and he's been stopped a lot this year. Talk to me.
Yeah, he's been stopped a lot this year, especially lately. I mean, I actually liked his rushing yards prop quite a bit, but it's just grown a little bit too much. It was 83.5 a few days ago. Now it's up to 88, 89.5, depending on where you look. So where I've decided to go with Derrick Henry is his longest rush over 15.5 yards, which you can get almost everywhere at minus 120. The rush attempt prop for Derrick Henry, I mentioned his yardage, but the rush attempt prop is around 22, 23.5, depending on where you look. So we know he's going to get the volume. Yes, he's been inefficient as of late, but a lot of that has been just poor matchups, frankly, and just not enough volume. I think he's only had 17 and 11 rushing attempts over the last 2 games. That switches now because they should be able to run all over the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I think that inefficiency really takes a turn. And I think we are going to see a couple of long rushes for Derrick Henry. We know Derrick Henry in December, right? It's sort of like business decision December for some of these guys who opt to tackle him or pretend to tackle him. And I think Derrick Henry really is going to finally get going this week. And I think he's going to spring a couple of them.
And from a side, and I'm coming to you, Alex, for a prop question, but Maestro, from a side perspective, the Titans have shown this year that they can cover against really good teams, and they took the Chiefs to overtime with a backup quarterback. But today, laying 3.5 the way they played, do you like that number? Do you agree with AB? Oh, no. Oh, you're on mute, baby. You're on mute. Oh,
that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing because I was about to offer AB a showdown, and I still take a showdown, but not at 3. This was 3.5. We're both on record at 3.5. Titans, Jeffrey Simmons will be active, but how healthy is he? Not very. They won't have Fulton, the corner. They won't have Autry. They won't have Treylon Burks. Jacksonville's very healthy, including Trevor Lawrence. And like you said, Coach, you want to back the Titans when they're dogs traditionally. I mean, last week, obviously, it didn't work out, but you don't want to lay points with this limited offense.
Maestro, we know that you are a very religious person, right? We respect that. We respect the schedule. I also am a religious person, and I have a hotline to the voice of God. So, voice of God, you've been challenged to a showdown. What say you?
Well, the voice,
It's gonna be a showdown.
Look, let me just go ahead and tell you and break it down right here. All right. Have you ever worked somewhere where someone important was fired? And you know what? It kind of gets everyone's attention, right? That happened this week with the Titans general manager, John Robinson. Boom, gone, out of here. Stuff thrown out on the street. Mike Vrabel is the king now of the entire organization. And let me assure you, when Mike Vrabel gets everyone's attention, the food was cooked better this week. Everything was done properly. I don't care who's out. If Mike Vrabel's on the sideline, the Titans are covering that 3.5.
Ooh, all right. So the number is 3.5. Maestro, 5 seconds. Quick retort to that.
Well, he's got inside info straight from the kitchen at the facility, but I'm still in against AB.
Oh, man, AB's the best. All right, so now the Maestro has not one but 2 showdowns today with AB, our 5-tool player, and Big Cheesy, 707. Big day for the Maestro. Big day for the Maestro. Big Cheesy, you could put yourself on the map if you take down one of the very best. All right, moving on. This is a big game. I want takes from all 3 of you. Now, the Eagles are going on the road to the shadows of New York City. Do not say anything, Alex. about New Jersey. I love New Jersey. I love New Jersey. I will not take any negative talk about that state. Isn't that the nutmeg state? Isn't that the nutmeg state? I don't know. I digress. Eagles are laying 7 on the road. Total 45. Last week, I'll be honest with you, I bet against the Eagles, and they burned me against those Titans. I'm not doing that again. As a brand, we're very, very busy. Uncle Dave has Miles Sanders over 14.5 rush attempts. Daniel Jones over 28.5 pass attempts. They'll be playing from behind all day long. AB is on Jalen Hurts over 50.5 rush yards. And Sia, you're on one of the names that I just said. Who?
Yeah, it's Miles Sanders over 65.5 rushing yards, which I have to concede. I got Friday on the prop show. I do want to mention, by the way, the Derrick Henry play I just gave out, that was not on the prop show. That's the extra play I always come to the Final Bets show with. But, Miles Sanders' line now has kind of shifted a little bit, and I don't think there's a really concrete reason why, but you can actually get this number in some places at 61.5. It's heavily juiced to the over, but it's probably at this point maybe 62.5 in some places. Certainly a better number than the 65.5 rushing yards I gave out, but I really like this play, and part of the reason it inflated to 65.5 from 62.5 on Fridays because Leonard Williams was doubtful. I don't believe he's playing. Maybe that's what the change is, if somebody can verify that for me. But either way, positive game script. I really like Miles Sanders to get the rushing volume, and that kind of goes to Dave Richards' play in terms of his over 14.5 rushing attempts. You never know with Miles Sanders because Jalen Hurts can kind of steal the show with the rushing attempt and Kenny Gainwell. But in this particular game script, I think we're going to see more of Miles Sanders than we normally see. And against a Giants defense that has just not been that good against the rush as of late, I like him to exceed 65.5 rushing yards.
And I love that too. Alex, let me come to you because the Giants have been a very, very difficult team when it comes to props because we just don't know what they're going to do. What did the lab tell you for this game today? So many different players we could play.
Yeah, we don't know Saquon Barkley's status, so obviously him being the engine of the Giants offense is, I think, tentatively expected to play, but it looks like a true 50-50 game time decision, but he has a drastic effect on all Giants props. I do like Dave's over 28.5 attempts for Daniel Jones quite a bit. If you read my weekly column, that may or may not have appeared in my column. So love that prop. As far as the Eagles go, it's an interesting matchup for them because the Giants are 24th in EPA allowed per drop back. They're also 24th in EPA allowed per rush. So they are literally a completely even porous run defense as they are a pass defense. And with the Eagles, what we've seen from them this season, they are primarily their first sort of attack mode is to attack down the field. So I actually think the Eagles could come out and try to hook up with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins down the field. If that doesn't materialize early, then I could see them shifting to the run, or obviously if they're up 15, 20 points in the first half, they're going to run the ball quite a bit in the second half. But that's been the Eagles' modus operandi this year. They are a pass-first team. They want to attack teams down the field. So I do think that's going to be how they come out early, and that's what they'll try and do against the Giants defense.
Quickly, and then Maestro, I'm coming to you. Daniel Jones over 35.5 on the ground, Alex.
Big number here for Daniel Jones. He either runs a lot or doesn't run a lot. It really hinges on Saquon Barkley's status. So without knowing it, I'd stay away.
Okay. Maestro, I already played the Eagles. I bought the 0.5 point to 6.5. Is that a smart move?
At 6.5, yeah, I would lean Eagles. At 7.5, I would lean Giants. I'm staying away from this one. On paper, the Eagles should roll, but, divisional games over a touchdown. Giants with the backdoor cover ability as they showed on Thanksgiving, staying away.
All right. Yes, Alex.
One name I want everyone to pay attention to is rookie tight end Daniel Bellinger from the Giants. This guy had an eye injury where he missed 5 or 6 weeks. Prior to that, he really looked like he was emerging as potentially a top 1 or 2 option in the Giants' low-volume passing attack. Returned to the lineup last week. He played 97% of the snaps. So when you have that sort of route participation and usage, and his line opened at 18.5 yards, shot all the way up to 27.5 currently, but he definitely looks like he's someone to monitor for the remainder of the season. Could be Daniel Jones' favorite target underneath.
Educate and entertain. Do you want to do the work that Alex just told you about the last 20 seconds? I didn't think so. Now, we have just crossed the bottom of the hour, less than 30 minutes from the start of the 1 o'clock games in the East Coast. It's just before 10 a.m. out here in the West Coast. But I mentioned, gentlemen, Shadows of New York City. Guess who's in the chat currently? A man who's going to New York City for the first time ever. And God, I wish we had a camera with him the entire week. Say hello to Buckets, everybody. Buckets is in the chat. Hello, Buckets. Now, apparently he can't show up on time because he just said, I want some showdowns. I want some showdowns. You've missed 2 buckets. You've missed 2 showdowns. So just sit there, answer some questions. If you guys have any soccer questions, throw them into the chat. He'll answer them for you. AB's got your football. Buckets has your football. All right, one more game at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Alex is so funny. Just chilling with the energy drink. By the way, what's the brand? Give him a little shout out. What's the brand you're drinking?
This is Monster, Coach.
Monster. You're a monster.
The OG, just a very basic flavor.
Yeah, you don't need a whole big can with a bunch of flashy stuff on it. And there will be no flash today in Pittsburgh. Oh, no. This is going to be down and dirty. Put your hand in the dirt and get busy. With no Lamar Jackson on one side. And the Steelers seem to have found their mojo on the other side. So the Ravens are underdogs with no Lamar Jackson. Steelers laying 2, total 36.5. It's very, very low. Mike and RJ, I told you, they're on the same teaser. Vikings plus 8.5, Ravens plus 8.5, which would now be 8. Remember, you want to keep it on the half because you don't want to have a push and a teaser. That is a loss. So let me start with you, Sia, because I've already played the Pittsburgh on the money line. It seems like to me there's a lot of lines today I just don't want to mess with, and I just want to bet on the winner. A little juicy, but to me, if you cash the ticket, that's what I want. What say you?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me to handicap. I do like the I do give an edge to the Steelers at -2, or obviously the money line. It really comes down to, how good is Tyler Huntley going to be? He's certainly, some version of Lamar Jackson. Last week, he kind of came in under, circumstances he couldn't have predicted. And he was also feeling very sick that day. So I think that kind of led into him not being super effective. I like the Steelers defense in particular. TJ Watt appears to be healthy. I think the defense is getting healthier. I think it's a pretty tough game environment for Tyler Huntley to walk into with just a weird cast of weapons, right? You obviously have Mark Andrews, who's been a little underwhelming, but is going to be the primary target. And then who else do you have? It's DeMarcus Robinson, Devin Duvernay. It's just a bunch of guys. And then the running back core with J.K. Dobbins maybe coming back. There's just a lot of parts here that I don't think are going to flash for the Ravens. So I'm on the Steelers side as well.
All right, Maestro, let's bring you in because sometimes the total can be so low that you're forced to make it. But with a backup quarterback on one side and the Steelers playing Steelers football, would you attack the total at all?
I'm staying away from this game. It does have 20-17 written all over it. You love backing Mike Tomlin as a dog, but now they're expected to win against a backup quarterback, but the Ravens got a lot of confidence from that final drive last week. I would lean Ravens, but I'm staying off.
Okay. And Alex, I know you have something to say, but let me ask you another question too. We played Tyler Huntley on the morning show. His rushing prop 41.5 -115. Do you think Tyler Huntley, who we've seen in the past, is very comfortable in this offense? Do you like that play?
I don't mind that play. I think Tyler Huntley is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I think if Tyler Huntley was a starter, he's in that 15 to 20 range as far as starting quarterbacks. I think this guy is very, very good, very underrated. Has been in the system for 3 years, has made 5 career starts. One thing I wanted to point out to the people and you guys is he loves Mark Andrews. In those 5 starts, they all came last year. Mark Andrews had 8 receptions for 73 yards in one game, 11 receptions for 115 in game 2, 10 receptions for 136 yards in game 3, 6 receptions for 89 yards in game 4, 8 receptions for 85 yards in game 5. Those are 5 spike games, all with Tyler Huntley at quarterback. He absolutely loves Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews props opened at 50.5, has shot all the way up north of 60. His receptions line you can still find at 4.5. It's around -135. I think both those numbers still have a lot of value.
All right, so let me ask you this, because my book has 5.5, but it's +130, and then his receiving number is 56.5 at my book.
Prefer that 56.5 number. That's a great value considering he's north of 60 on most majors.
Boom, I'm betting it live right here on the show. It's what I do. It's what we do, and we don't lie. Boom. There you have it right there. Just bet it. That's what we do. You take the information, use it for yourself. And I'm not going to blame Alex if this loses, so you don't do that. All right. Now, we've just completed the 1 o'clock games. That's what we do. We had just a few minutes left till the top of the hour. But there are 3 remaining games, and there are big-time stars, gentlemen, playing late in the day. At 4:05, my beloved Chiefs, after blowing it last week in Cincinnati, they're now back tied for that number 1 seed. There is no room for disappointment. They're laying 9 on the road, though, in Denver. the Fighting Russell Wilsons just hasn't materialized yet. The total 44. Maestro, I'm starting with you because I'm looking down at my notes and I agree with you. Talk to me.
Yeah, I think this line should be 10. The last couple of times the Chiefs lost, they came back and they blew out the opponent, and they have owned the Broncos. 13 straight wins. In fact, the last 6, 168-74. The talk in Denver is how much money should Russell Wilson give back? I mean, it has been a complete flop, a total disaster. Everybody knows Hackett is gone. They've lost one heartbreaking game after another. I think they get to maybe 13 points, 14 points. The Chiefs definitely get to 24. I really like KC here.
Russell Wilson, Maestro, walked out of his $26 million house this morning. He was not thinking about paying any of that money back. He's got to pay for that house. By the way, the richest house ever sold in Denver, and Russell Wilson bought it. $26.5 million. Bronco fans, you get him for 5 more years. 5 more years. Woohoo! Woohoo! See ya. Let me come to you, because when you have a game like this, we have seen from the Chiefs, they don't always come out and score 40. They sometimes struggle just to get the W on a game that maybe they're not absolutely focused on. So with that being said, on the Chiefs, I'm not touching any of the Broncos props. Stop that. But on the Chiefs side, is there anything you like?
Not really, because if anything, it would be Isaiah Pacheco props, because I think it could be a nice game for him. And, as far as the spread, it's probably going to be a stay away for me, but I do think we could see against this Kansas City secondary, we could see an actual decent game from Russell Wilson, which is why I kind of like Greg Dulcich props. I kind of like Jerry Jeudy props. I think Kendall Hinton will get in the mix if you want to do sort of a low cost contrarian play in DFS, but I'd be looking at Isaiah Pacheco and I'd be looking at Dulcich and Jerry Jeudy.
Alex, you're shaking your head. Yes.
Yes, I think great minds think alike. I love both Isaiah Pacheco and specifically Greg Dulcich in both these matchups. The one thing I would caution with Pacheco is he does require a kind of specific game plan in order to get the 15 to 20 touches I think a lot of people are hopeful he's going to get, because if the Chiefs get up too big, they will turn to Ronald Jones. They will only use Pacheco in a scenario where the game is still within reach. If the Chiefs are up by 21 points in the late third quarter, they will instead turn to Ronald Jones. I do like Pacheco, but I would just caution people to be a little bit careful with him. Love Greg Dulcich as well. He's the tight end for the Broncos, has good chemistry with Russell Wilson, and no Cortland Sutton today. So he's kind of functioning as the number one option in their passing game, has really emerged this season. Very athletic, field stretching tight end. So like Dulcich a lot as well.
Okay, by the way, the Pacheco number, if anybody's wondering, is 67.5, and it's juiced to the under, to Alex's point. So very good information by both of you. All right, now this next game. Sometimes the NFL gods are just shining down on you. Now, the Bucs, Tom Brady, first place, 6-6, taking on the San Francisco 49ers, 8-4. First place team. However, it's not the matchup we thought we were going to get. 49ers laying 3.5 currently, total 37. And I have been absolutely enamored with Brock Purdy's nickname. And if you don't know what it is, I'm not going to say it on the show because I like my job. But this dude has ego, confidence, everything you want in a quarterback, and his team has his back. Tom Brady, though, somebody in the chat, if it's correct, 7-0 against first-time quarterbacks that he faces. But that was probably with the Patriots. So, gentlemen, Uncle Dave, Chris McCaffrey over 39.5 receiving yards, minus 117. It makes sense for a rookie quarterback to lean on his security blanket, which is Christian McCaffrey. And then, Maestro, you believe, and I think everybody does, that if the Bucs have any shot, they've got to play the way they've been playing lately, which is doing what?
Well, they can't run the ball, so they're going to throw it. Brady's going to dink and dunk, and it's painful to watch sometimes, but the attempts pile up, and he's gone over this number, 36.5 pass attempts, 9 of the last 10 weeks, and 5 of those games he had 49 or more. This is just based on my thesis that the only game they could run the ball was against the Seahawks, and that's how bad the Seahawks run defense is. Other than that, they really struggle, so they're going to have to throw, even if it's, they're not behind. They're going to have to throw to move the ball.
And what's crazy, Alex, is that when you look at, and I know it's against the prevent defense, but when they really start to play like hurry up, they move the ball. They've done it the last couple of weeks, scoring late in the game. But when you put all 11 versus 11 during the first 50 minutes, it changes everything. What did the lab tell you about any of these props on either side, which are very difficult with a rookie quarterback and an offense that's not been very predictable?
Yeah, as far as the 49ers props go, just based on the minimal sample that we saw last week of Brock Purdy, really leaned on the short area passing game. He didn't complete a pass over 19 yards. One look that I like quite a bit was Brandon Ayuk's longest reception under 19 and a half yards. He was not targeting outside. Brock Purdy was not targeting his outside receivers very much at all. And when he was throwing very shallow. I think they're going to continue to protect him, lean heavily on the ground game, lean heavily on the throwing to Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuels, close to the line of scrimmage, and giving them room to work in space. Also, this Bucs pass defense is the strength of their defense. Very stingy pass defense. Fourth in EPA allowed per dropback. I believe they're third in passing DVOA. So it's a tough matchup for them. I do anticipate them to lean heavily on the ground game. As far as the Bucs offensive skill position players, very low numbers because of how just excellent this 49ers defense is. Outside of really Chris Godwin, not a lot that I like there. So I am staying away from most Tampa Bay props. I do really like Larry's look of over 36 and a half attempts for Brady.
By the way, that longest reception for my apologies. That longest reception for Brandon Ayuk is now at 18 and a half. Would you still like it there?
I would say that's kind of the threshold for where I would stay away.
Okay, very good. See, let me come to you because Chris Godwin has now, it's no longer Mike Evans. It's the Chris Godwin show. And his number is 60 and a half for receiving, and his receptions number is at 6, which is high against a very, very good defense for the 49ers. I'm leaning to the under on the catches. What about you on the yardage?
Yeah, I'm almost leaning to the over on the catches and the under on the yardage. And that sounds a little counterintuitive, but we know what the game plan is, especially against San Francisco. Get the ball out really, really fast. And Godwin is going to be that guy in the middle of the field, 5, 6, 7, 8 yard A dot, and then boom, he catches the ball. So I think Godwin, to Alex's point, could have a good game, but I don't know how the Bucs are going to score a ton in this game. They looked awful last week until 2-minute drill time, and this San Francisco defense is a lot better. I think Brock Purdy could have a very pedestrian game, and they still could win this game by 10 points.
Well, to your point, the team total for Tampa Bay for the entire game is 16. 16. It almost feels like you have to play it. Alex, go.
One prop I just wanted to point out really quickly that I like is Christian McCaffrey's rushing attempts is set at 13 and a half. No Elijah Mitchell in the backfield for the 49ers. Saw McCaffrey really get leaned on heavily last week. The Bucs have really actually struggled up front. They're still an above average run defense, but not the run defense that they've been in recent history. So it's a winnable matchup for San Francisco up front. I really do like McCaffrey over 13 and a half rushing attempts.
Javon says, stop giving your local book numbers, coach. Should pull an odd screen or something for what we bet. No, that's not what we do. We use bets from all the different books. Caesars is our partner at CBS, but I have a main book too. So you can host your show your way, and I'll host our show our way. Thank you, Javon. Moving on. I apologize for that. We've got one more game to get to, and then we're getting the hell out of Dodge. And we're going to go watch the games if that's okay with Javon. If not, we'll just sit here for another 3 hours and do another show. You let me know what you want to do. All right. This one, we have a pick from the morning show on this game. Panthers, Seahawks. Seahawks laying 3.5. They have not been the team they were in the first 8 weeks. Total 44.5. AB is on Deontay Foreman over 63.5 rush yards in this game. Maestro, let's start with the side because you like a side in this game. It may not be the side that people think.
I really love the Panthers. I took 4. I would still play it at 3.5. They're going to run the ball, and they're going to run it well. This Seahawks defense, since week 10, given up over 200 yards on the ground. Deontay Foreman has 4 100-yard rushing games in his last 6. Kenneth Walker doesn't look like he'll be out there. The Panthers are getting healthier on defense. J.C. Horn is back. He can cover DK Metcalf. I think it's going to be a tight game. The Panthers had a bye. They have Sam Darnold trying to string 2 good games together with no turnovers. I mean, can that happen? No, probably not. Probably turns it over once. But he is an upgrade, certainly over Baker Mayfield. And the Panthers 5-2 against the number with the interim coach Wilks.
Could we possibly, Maestro, have a week where 2 quarterbacks that both played for the Panthers a week ago win separate games in the NFL the week after? I don't know if that's ever happened. I don't know if it's ever happened, but that could happen today. And probably 2 times. As I come to you, somebody's got to catch the ball for Sam Darnold. No?
Yeah, absolutely, Coach. Yeah, I like DJ Moore over 50.5 receiving yards. Listen, we saw DJ Moore come back to life last week with Sam Darnold at the helm, turned 6 targets into 4 receptions for 103 yards and a receiving touchdown as well. Small sample of Sam Darnold, but his performance last week was a massive improvement over all of the quarterback play we've seen from Carolina this season. I really think he's going to put some life back into this Panthers offense. It's also a good matchup against the Seahawks. They're 26th in EPA allowed per dropback. They're also 26th in pass rush grade. The reason both those stats are relevant is because DJ Moore has a deep A dot. He gets a ton of air yards, so that gives time for those routes to develop deep down the field. I think this is a great spot for DJ Moore against a good matchup against the Seattle pass defense. Also love that Seattle tends to play fast and up tempo with Geno Smith at quarterback, especially recently. So this actually has a little bit of shootout potential. So I love DJ Moore over 50.5 receiving yards. I play this one up to 53.5.
And see if that happens. There's a name, and I'm looking for the number right now. There is a name that we've been on all season long, and that is, gosh darn it, I have to look through all these sports books that are
I probably know the number if you know the name, Coach.
Kenneth Walker.
He's inactive today.
That's what I thought. So we're talking about him, but he's no longer there. So when you look at the Seahawks props and you have to spread them around, what do we do?
Yeah, I actually like Tyler Lockett. It's not an official play for me, but, DK Metcalf is active and he's working on a hip injury, but I think he's going to be fine. In terms of Carolina's coverage grade, they've been pretty good lately. But against the slot receiver, they're not as good as the outside receivers. Lockett can have some of those bust potential games, whereas Metcalf, you can kind of guarantee the floor there. But I do like Lockett's yards in this particular game. As far as anybody else on Seattle, like their starting running back, it looks like it's going to be Tony Jones, maybe Travis Homer, but it's going to be those 2 going back and forth. So I don't like anything there. But I think Geno Smith is going to hit Tyler Lockett for more yards than DK Metcalf. So I like him. And I do want to point out, I think Noah Fant might have a nice game in this one too.
All right, Noah Fant. Boy, he's a name that pops up more and more lately, isn't it? Why are you shaking your head? Why do you like Noah Fant, Alex?
Just an athletic tight end, a guy that I felt was underutilized on the Broncos, got traded as part of that Russell Wilson deal, Coach. And he's started to emerge as a reliable target for Geno Smith. We're also seeing a shift in philosophy from the Seahawks. They were always a very run-heavy team with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. With Geno Smith, they're actually leaning a lot more towards the pass, putting the game in Geno's hands. This guy has had a phenomenal season. DK Metcalf doesn't appear to be 100% either. So I do think Noah Fant could provide some nice sneaky value in this game. Carolina's also bled a lot of production to opposing tight ends as well.
Boom. And there you have it. All the 1 o'clock games, all the 4 o'clock games. Don't forget, we'll be here tonight. It's going to be a great Sunday night football game, the Dolphins and the Chargers. But it's time for the whip around where my guys go through their best bets in 10 seconds or less, and we'll throw them up on the screen so you can see all of them. You still have 7 minutes to get whatever. We don't encourage you to bet all of these bets, but we give them to you. You use the ones that you like. Mikey, as we turn, leave it on the first screen there, AB. Leave it on the first screen. There you go. So there's that one. RJ White. Maestro, go through yours very quickly while we look at the rest of them.
Yeah, Chiefs to bounce back after that loss and take care of the pathetic Broncos. The Panthers, we talked about their ability to run the ball on Seattle. And you see the props, but I'm really most fired up to have a showdown with Big Cheesy. The guy is in the chat. He's loyal every day. He's one of our best viewers that I love seeing his interactions. And I want to take him down today, to be honest. And the Bengals 17-2 against the number in same season rematches. I know it's kind of a crazy stat, but they did it earlier against the Steelers. The coaching staff will adjust. I think Joe Burrow finally breaks through against the Browns.
All right. Very, very good. Change the screen, AB. Let's go to Sia. Sia, what are your best bets today?
Yeah, give me DJ Moore. Oh, I you know what? I almost gave out DJ Moore over 50.5 receiving yards. So give me that one too. No, seriously, on the prop show, I mentioned that. Dameon Pierce, longest rush under 15.5 yards. Miles Sanders over 65.5 rushing yards. Jared Goff over 23.5 completions. Gabriel Davis under 48.5 receiving yards. Derrick Henry, longest rush over 15.5 yards. By the way, somebody asked about a money line parlay earlier in the day, earlier in this show. I do want to point out that I actually did bet a money line parlay. I don't do that a lot, but I did bet Philadelphia, Tennessee money line parlay. It was pretty much even money. I do like that quite a bit.
It's one of those weeks. I literally texted a friend of mine before the show, and I said, today feels like a money line day. There's a lot of numbers that are yucky, but money lines we like. So I don't mind that one at all. All right, Proppy, let's go through yours.
All right, Coach. We've got DJ Moore over 50.5 receiving yards. I love the difference that Sam Darnold makes at quarterback for Moore. Had his best game of the season last week. Then we've got DeAndre Swift over 24.5 receiving yards. Looks fully healthy. Practicing full Thursday and Friday. Really appears to be at his best form of the season. Then we've got Garrett Wilson over 59.5 receiving yards. This guy is electric, dynamic, the best rookie wide receiver in a great class. Austin Eckler under 48.5 rushing yards, and Jeff Wilson over 40.5 rushing yards. I will talk about both these props at length tonight on our Sunday Night Football preview stream at 4:30 Eastern. 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific.
Boy, the man can even host now. There's nobody better at teasing ahead than my man Proppy two-time. Give me my one shot, AB. It's time for us to get the hell out of Dodge. By the way, that 7:30 p.m. show tonight, if you've never watched it before, we do best bets, we do props, we do something called the Goose, the Donkey, the Gem. You want to know what that is? Join us at 7:30 p.m. Eastern tonight. By the way, Javon, we're all good. You know, here at the brand, we go against each other, and then we end the show, and we're all good. So me and you are all good. But with that being said, there's only one thing left to do, and I believe you all know. Damn it, I love this so much. What that is. You've got your marching orders. Let's take all of these Week 14 Sunday NFL tickets straight to the pay window. My entire crew, love them all. Proppy two-time, the most handsome man in all of the early edge University in Najad, the maestro, Buckets and AB in the chat doing work for all of you. The whole crew shows up on Sunday right here at the early edge. Good luck.